Yeah, word up. Check the mic. It's Jarad, Brandon, Travis, and Cypher making it live, dropping jewel-encrusted knowledge on how the modern world thrives. From education elevation to the tech-driven innovation, building stronger families, a righteous spiritual foundation. We examine every angle, untangle all the hot topics. Our perspectives are organic, knocking the phoniest off its axis. This is essential listening. Stay tuned and get the field notes. Word up! Peace!
Hello, welcome to Field Notes, where we talk about faith, family, tech, business, and all the things between. I'm Jarad, joined by Brandon and Travis. This week, we're going to deep dive into money. First, let's do some check-in. Brandon, how you doing this week?
Oh man, such a great week. Got my Cal sweatshirt on. Later today, I actually get to go back to UC Berkeley to talk about two things that I love: AI and education. So it'll feel good to go back to campus.
Dear
Family doing good.
children, you've just spent 150 grand to never work again. We're welcome. Go
Yeah,
AI.
all of the big wigs of AI will be there. So Andrew Ng and Andrew Karpathy and like all these famous
Wow.
people that we read
Brandon
headlines about.
Middleton, and
So
yeah, it's
you
good, man.
know, should be good. Should be good. How about you, Travis?
Karpathy, he coined the term vibe coding, right? Like he
He
was the
did.
guy who,
He did.
No,
that's a
actually,
big
he and
deal.
I were at coffee, and I coined the term vibe coding, and he stole it. Can you believe it? Like, I gotta start writing this stuff down, guys.
So many quotes you've got that
I
no one
mean,
knows about.
I
Yeah.
This
know
whole
it's.
podcast platform is just to let the world know who the originator is.
I think
I
the
think you
problem is
need
I'm just too
yeah.
modest. I think that's it. I'm just not taking enough credit. I think that's why did you guys roll your eyes? I don't understand.
I thought you could use an AI-enabled mic to take notes of all your conversations so that you always have accreditation options. So you
That's
can
true. And
always go
you
back
know
to
what?
this.
And every time, here's how I know it starts taking notes. I just Van Wilder it. Write that down. And then there we go. And it writes it down. Travis, okay, you go. I'll stop interrupting you. How
My
was your
week's
weekend?
it's all great. My week's been good. We are on a real road trip, so I am tuning in from Western South Dakota. My oldest turned 9. We decided to take a big road trip to some state parks and national parks out here. So we've seen elk and buffalo and all the other wildlife. We've done a bunch of hiking. Everybody is tired, so it is good. Those are sunburns and tiredness. Those are signs of a good trip in the summer, I think.
That's awesome, man. Like, do you see the signs on the national parks? I heard are getting like some renovation in this country. Are they all reading as they should?
As far as I know, I haven't seen anything that looks completely egregious. I did see a humorous T-shirt about not petting the fluffy cows. Apparently, people try to pet buffalo, wild buffalo, in these parks, Yellowstone especially, because they are cute, but also they're 2,000 pounds of muscle that will ruin your day if you get too close. So
Yeah, that
Interesting that
doesn't.
somebody would be bold enough to just walk up to something like that.
I don't know. I got some family members I could tell you about. They'd be very happy to make a viral clip about how they went and pet the cow.
JB, how you doing, man?
Life's good, man. What did I do this week? Lots of things, but you know what I did this week is I signed up for hobbies outside the house. I realized so many of my hobbies, like this, and my job involves sitting behind a computer. Uh, and my youngest was taking art classes at this place, and my mom was a professional artist for the last 20 years of her life, professional watercolorist, but always made her own clothes, had a degree in fashion, like was always artistic. And as was I. I grew up as an artist. I was an architecture major. You guys may not know that for a year until I didn't do well at that. I did well at the art piece. I didn't do well at the building. And apparently that's key to be an architect is to have your building stand up. And so I was like, I'll be honest, it's disagreements with my teachers. They're like, well, that wouldn't work. I'm like, how do you
especially
know?
in earthquake prone zones like the Bay Area, right?
But it was like, "Well, how would you know?" And they were like, "Well, I've been an architect for 50 years." And I'm like, "Well, I'm 18 years old, so what's up?" Yeah, so I signed up for some abstract painting. I signed up for some acrylics. I signed up for some wine tasting classes because why not? And so yeah, it was good. It's been a good week. But
Do you dream of Bob Ross? It sounds
um,
like, man, it's like
I dream of Bob Ross's hair. I mean, I'm very lucky. I usually wear a hat on here, but I do have my hair and it's still a color that isn't white, and so I'm very grateful for that. So sorry, Travis. Uh,
Why
okay,
are you pointing this at me?
I'm not.
I'm
No, it's
confused.
I don't know either.
You know,
Ok
I shared Bob Ross with my kids to try to see if this would like transcend generations, and they were transfixed. Like they were amazed by this, and it's just peaceful, quiet television that inspires art. So if you haven't introduced Bob Ross to your kids yet, I highly recommend it. You've got the official Field Notes podcast recommendation today.
I will say Travis has 2 girls, I have 2 boys. I tried the same. Is ruthlessly trolled the right word for what my boys did for, "What the heck's a happy little tree, dad?" I don't know,
Yeah,
man. Like, shut up and watch. Like, oh my
some
gosh.
sometimes we make fun of the people we love the most, though, right?
In my family, that's for sure. Okay, boys, let's head into headlines and hot takes.
Headlines and hot takes.
This week, we're going to talk about personal finance. We're going to talk about money. And one of my favorite publications, Business Insider, every day has an article on the FIRE movement. And so I'll kind of broaden it a little bit, but I'd love to hear, what do you guys do with your money today? Like, what's your philosophy? Are there any kind of tips you've picked up in all these years that you would want to pass along?
Fire, for folks that don't know, is financially independent, retire early, which I think lots of our friends want to do.
It's a very Bay Area thing, and there's, like, 25 different versions of it, and, yeah, it's fascinating, like, it's, such a different philosophy than put money in your 401k or have a pension and retire, which isn't that old, 30 years ago, that was pretty common, right?
Yeah, as a son of an accountant, my mom was definitely somebody that beat the drum on just savings. From the early age of 12, when I was on the golf course caddying, getting cash mostly from rounds, she would make me save it. She'd make me pay taxes on it. I'm like, Mom, taxes on cash? And she's like, if you want this job, you have to do kind of the moral thing. So that's been banged into my head. And I think in order to retire early, you definitely have to like over save. And since that's now part of kind of the natural makeup of how I look at money and think about money, that's been probably the biggest lever. Living below your means and trying to save big chunks. So, Travis, I'll pass it to you.
We are similar in that way too. I didn't caddy when I was growing up, but I did work at a golf course in the kitchen, ironically. So I cooked a lot of line cooking, a lot of prep cooking for all the banquets that they did, and that was the moment of kind of realization too that this, if I didn't do something different, this could be somebody else. Like that could be my life too. Like if people like to work in kitchens, that's cool. I love because of it. I love to cook now, but also then I thought to myself, well, what else can I do with what I've got. And part of that was trying to get to an education. Neither of my parents went to college, so I was the first from my family line to go to college. And to get there, there wasn't a lot of help, so it was getting a job to save money. My parents made me save half of the money that I made for the future.
That's really great. I think my parents were their first in their families, both of them, to go to college. Now, my grandfather was, on my dad's side, was quite successful, but he had a third grade education. He was just a very good salesman. And so he parlayed that into a decent amount of money that, because he lacked education, he ended up losing later in life. That's a interesting story. Yeah, I think for a long time, I didn't know what fire was for a long time, but this concept of coast fire, where you kind of save up enough and then at some point kind of put it into different gear, right? I believe in sprints when it comes to your career. So when my first startup ran out of money, and they were like, "Do you wanna stay on? We're gonna pivot and become a smaller startup, and you can be a co-founder." And I was like, "Oh, no. No, no, I'm good." And and so I took 6 months off, and I had a moment there where I was like, "Okay, my wife was working, had a good job, and I grew up without means as well, and so I can turn it up and down pretty easily, right?" And so I think that I thought about, okay, like, do we stop here and do something else, right? I was doing a lot with the nonprofits that I work with in the unhoused community and doing some consulting and really thought about it, but then decided, hey, I've got another sprint in me. So let me go take another decade and run after a couple different jobs. But I tell you, like, there's some comfort there. Like, I do think about how long do I want to do this, right? Is there a grind? Is there other versions of this? But day to day, like, do you guys budget? Do you like track every penny? Are you that person? Like, how risky are you with your investments?
I'd say, I mean, not in
Yeah.
spreadsheets. I think it's like a sensibilities type of thing. And
My
like,
feelings, man. Like today.
thank the Lord for the Midwest, right? When you go back home, I was just back in Chicago a couple weeks ago, and the gas prices were like in the $3 range, which is like half of what I pay here in California. So there's certain things that should cost a certain amount of money. So I can't pay like $10 for a cup of coffee, or I can't pay, a certain amount. So my vibes are typically Chicago Midwestern taste, even though I've lived in California. So certain things that my neighbors will just get as part of their daily life who've always lived in California are just like, no, I cannot, because that is wasteful to me. I don't know if you feel the same, Travis, in the Midwest.
I do struggle sometimes with it, and there is that. We've kind of like touched on it just lightly here. Like, work hard, earn money, spend less than you make, right, and spend it wisely on things that improve your life. Kind of vibe. That's not everybody here. Like, you can't say all the Midwest does it. Like, I know people who blow a lot of money on some fun toys, but also generally speaking, I think there is a little bit more of that vibe, if we want to use that term here. I've went through the sprints as well, Jared, and so I think that's a great way to think about it. Is when you're asking about do you budget? I used to really
Mm.
detailed, and I used to work at KPMG, one of the big four accounting firms. I love my spreadsheets as well, and we went through a period where we had to budget, and that was the smart thing to do. And we've been blessed to like make enough to get into a spot where the habits that we've built over time are still there, so that I don't have to budget for it. And if I want to splurge here and there, I know that we've got the ability to do it, but we still live well below our means because of the habits that we built in one of the earlier sprints in our life.
Yeah. Do you have anyone you guys listen to? Right? Is there somebody that you subscribe to? Like, there's some popular people out there. Like, there's this guy on YouTube I really like. His name is Steven. I think he's like the millionaire teacher or something like that. And he kind of did this fire thing, but again, like there's this like barista fire piece where it's not that you stop working. It's like, and we'll talk about retirement here kind of later on, but he has just a different view of kind of what that next stage looks like. But he has some really good kind of just simple education. I think there are some great educational videos out there, but he's one I really like. There's a bunch of folks on YouTube. There's the old Rich Dad Poor Dad, like those kind of books and things that like before we had YouTube, right? We had
Yeah.
books and we read stuff like that. I read a lot of like real estate investment property stuff back in the day. But is there any folks that you listen to you might recommend?
I'd say Tiffany Aliche, this lady, I think she goes by the Budget Nista. I remember my wife buying her book a long time ago. Um, I mean, there's some good stuff even in the Bible about just like the way to think about money in terms of not being subservient to it that I take some lessons from. And then I just listen to you, man. Jared's got all the one-liners and all the quotes. I just keep that close to my heart, man, every
Oh
day.
man. Speaking of the Bible, I was reading Leviticus this week, believe it or not, and it was talking about the year of Jubilee. And we're all coming up on our 49th birthday in the not so distant future. And I was just like thinking about this concept of
Speak for yourself, man. I'm like 25.
plus.
That's just because you shaved.
Yeah, I would say, man, I was telling you before we started, I was like, Brandon, is that one of your sons? Like, you look good, man. What about you, Travis? Anyone that you subscribe to?
Again, sprints. And so there was early when I found out about the financial independence, retire early fire movement. I listened to a guy that I don't know if I can recommend anymore, but his online persona was Mr. Money Mustache,
Heck
and
yeah.
he's
That guy's a
yeah
funny looking dude, but
he is.
he's great.
He was one of the first people I think really to popularize the idea of the movement. He's in Colorado, did really well, I think, in tech, if I remember correctly, and then retired in his late 30s, early 40s, and then tried to popularize this. He's a very successful blogger on this topic. And then he also does construction on the side for extra cash, if I remember right. But I haven't listened to him a lot recently. There is a guy named Brad who has a podcast and a weekly newsletter called Choose FI. Choose Financial
Okay.
Independence, which I like because it kind of separates the idea of financial independence from retiring early. These are often put together because FIRE is a fun acronym, but also you can be financially independent and still like just have a lot of options then to go find different work where you work for the vocation element of it, the calling element of it, the enjoyment element of it rather than just the money. There's still money involved and there's still benefits and all of that too, but you're less focused on the cash being the primary driver of the job.
Let me also say, there's a guy, since we're talking about
Yeah.
mustaches, there's a
Yeah.
guy named Beardy Brandon. I think his name is Brandon Turner. I was doing real estate from 2016, let's call it, to 2022 or 2023. And this guy helped me understand like how to find a house, how to buy, rehab, re there's this Burr method with
Burr
all
method,
these
yeah, with
R's,
4
right?
R's, yep, yeah.
And, he was somebody that was a role model of mine, so he's got all these books, Bigger Pockets, I think is the name of the organization that teaches people about the real estate stuff, but, probably prescient and relevant in this conversation too. So we got a mustache, we got a bearded Brandon, and, JB, I'll pass it back to you. Maybe you've got some other afros, Bob Ross.
Yeah,
Give us
you know,
something.
I think, at the end of it, you say a lot of things that I always talk about. I think, I'll give you a hot take. There's a guy we haven't talked about who I like some of his stuff. Dave Ramsey, is kinda like, and again, I like him as a person, and his business is a little interesting, like, just making all this money off people. He's quite rich. Uh, but he operates from a place of fear, meaning it's this like money and debt are so bad that you should be afraid of it. And he operates by very black and white rules for folks. And talk about sprints, like those are okay in a season. Like if you're drowning in debt, like he's great. You've got a bad credit card, purse buying, watch buying habit. You buy a new car every year and you lease it and like you're making bad choices. So go listen to that guy. But you outgrow that pretty fast, like, once you learn all of that stuff, and yet he continues to try and sell you things, and so I have this, like, lasting memory of someone called into his show who wanted to make a purchase and, like, clearly could afford it, but he had, through all the classes they had bought from him, were so afraid of money, and I was just like, "Oh, that just upset me," right? So, I think, I think you guys talk a lot about like getting control, knowing your numbers. I say this for every business owner. You'd be shocked at the number of small business people I talk to who just like, great. So like, what was revenue last year? And they just stare at me and like, well, I think it's about. I'm like, oh no, 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 no. Like, I don't need you. You're an amazing baker, but like, you got to know how much you pay your people, and you got to know like, did you make any money last year? And I don't need you to financially optimize anything. So same thing for people, right? Like, how much comes in, how much goes out. You know, to some of Brandon's point, like I actually am not the person who thinks that like I had Starbucks yesterday. I was trying to find my cup. But I know I can do that, right? And I know that's what I want because I don't buy other stuff, right? But I think that knowing what you buy, knowing what's important to you, making sure you save first. These are just nice, easy principles, right? Like I just take money off the top, throw it in a savings account. I've got a 401k. There were points though in my life where I was, to Brandon's point, I was doing real estate and I was trying to figure that out and I did some initial things. So I don't know if there's like a perfect thing other than like you got to get started somewhere. If you are staring at your retirement fund and you're worried, like you should probably change something, right? And what is great today is that there is a trillion resources. I think my only other advice that I tell people is don't listen to all of them. Pick one, spend a week and look at 5, 10, 100. I don't care. Pick one that you think makes sense for you, that resonates. You're like, okay, this one kind of vibes with me right now, and go listen to that for 6 months. And then decide what you want to do. Maybe you move on. So I see too many people get kind of stuck in that analysis paralysis. And I guess, like, speaking of that, let me, like, pass this on. There's been some great reads. I was reading in parents.com and in Forbes, kinda like, what do you teach your kids about money? And I grew up in a place where we just didn't have a ton, like, I grew up in that household, we just don't talk about money, right? And so I learned a lot of this through trial and error. I had a grandfather who was rich, who by the time he died had passed away. And because he didn't know what he was doing from a taxes standpoint and listened to bad advisors who took advantage of him, frankly. And so it made me, it kind of inspired me to get smarter, but I don't want my kids to go through that if they don't have to, right? So how can I teach them? So I don't know, maybe start with you, Travis. Like, I think you've always got good lessons for your kids. Like, what do you do with money and with your kids? How do you educate them?
Yeah, we've been trying to be intentional about it, I guess is the first thing. So, and we did some research on it, and I love the point where even as we're talking about, getting your financial house in order, Jared, find some methodology, see what you like about it, but then do it, right? Because you can get stuck in analysis paralysis pretty easily. So we did a little bit of research first, read a couple books, and we wanted to make sure that we had equipped ourselves to a certain extent to try to have this conversation because we didn't know much about it. And I don't know that either of our parents had intentionality around it. They had good lessons and good values, and we came out good because of that. But we wanted to be just a little more intentional about it. So we did some research first. And what we came up with was kind of a big debate about, do you give your kids allowance or not? Is that enabling something? Is that setting up some sort of attitude of expectation that isn't healthy? And here's where we landed after all this is we decided to do an allowance to give them some money to start to work with. Now, granted, again, sprints, we were at 6 and 8 or 5 and 8 years of age at that point. And so this might be different if your kids are a little bit older, but we started just doing $3 a week. And three was an intentional number because we wanted them to think about it in three categories. One was spending, one was saving, and one was giving. And we think these are three healthy kind of budget categories to be thinking about for the rest of your life. And so we said, what if we start now? We got them little peanut butter jars, pickle jars, any of the leftover jars, because we wanted them to have a physical place to put it so they could see it. We wanted them to be visible so they'd see the money going and they could see it there. They're all labeled because I geek out and I used to work at KPMG as well. They have a ledger book, so they keep track of all of the deposits that they get and the expenditures.
No, they don't.
It's they do.
You have
It,
never told me
it's
about the
awesome.
ledger book. And
It's awesome.
Brandon was raised by an accountant and doesn't have a ledger book.
What? No,
He
but
secretly,
I did have a green glass jar and it was translucent, transparent where I can like see my nickels and my quarters and I'm thinking like nickels, nickels, nickels like in Charlie Brown Peanuts.
yeah,
And there is something about being able to
there's
visually see your money when you're a kid. You think you're
For
like
sure.
so rich when you have like five.
Kid, me, man. Like, I just got a jar of quarters, man. It's freaking great. I throw away pennies now. Pennies are stupid. I'll give you guys
The
a fun little stat. One of the most interesting findings around money habits is that kids' attitudes towards saving, spending, and delayed gratification, they are now saying are established by age 7. So you say, hey, 5 and 8, like, oh, it's maybe a little early. I mean, a big part of this is how do you think about saving and spending? Like, so much of this is attitudes, delayed gratification. I don't know if you guys ever heard the marshmallow test. Have you guys ever heard that before?
yeah. But for
Yeah.
everybody else, you want to explain it?
Yeah, for sure. So there was this saying with kids where they would take like was a 2 or 3 year old, they put him in a room and they put like a marshmallow in front of him and they say, and the person would be like, okay, like, I'll be right back. Like something, go step out of the room. And I forget the percentages here, but half of them, let's say, would eat the marshmallow and be like, oh, I don't know, like this bird came out of raccoon out of nowhere and take the marshmallow. And the other one would not, right? And I think it was some prompt of like, hey, if you can not eat this while I leave the room, I'll bring you back a second. right? And so it's that idea of you get this reward if you can delay. And so I think they found some correlation later in life to the kids who didn't eat the marshmallow, did not become president. And so, or no, is that not? No, I don't. Oh no, sorry. Is
Wow.
that wow? Oh, sorry. But yeah, it was just that concept that if you can do it at that age, that it carried over into your life. So again, like a lot of this stuff is established young. Certainly, a lot of how I thought about money until I hit my late 20s and 30s was established by what I watched. Right? Like no matter what I say, my kids watch what I do and they copy that.
I would say, it's not marshmallows these days. I have kids that love games and kids that, watch a bunch of different things on YouTube that they enjoy that are a little too silly for me to sit with them at all times, but they do come and say, "Hey, can we go and buy a Roblox skin, or can we go and, like, spend money frivolously," in my mind? So I'm curious, Travis, if you've got $1 for spending, $1 for saving, and 1 for giving, uh,
Yeah.
how locked down is your thoughts about what they spend it on? Like, do you care if they've earned it, or is it like, "No, let me, like, try to steer towards the kinds of things that you should actually be buying?"
That was really tough. On the giving side, we are intentional about that to give them more guidance, and we're pretty open to wherever they want to give, but it's for somebody else, for something you believe in, for making a difference in some other way, for somebody who needs help. The saving, we want them to set a goal, and we want them that delayed gratification element, kind of the marshmallow test. We're trying to like get that in there early, so that's intentional that way. So my youngest has decided that she wants to buy a 3D printer. Her cousin has a small 3D printer. It's they're expensive for a little 6-year-old, but God bless her, she's set a goal and she's saving towards it and she's excited for it. That's all. That's what we want to see. So that's how I know it's working. Back to the first point you brought up though, the spending. So, I'm looking across the room here at our Airbnb and I see a blue rubber 2-foot long snake that the kids bought at the reptile garden yesterday with their own money, and I just let it happen. And that was hard for me because I want them to make good choices, which is like, are you going to find fulfillment in this? Is this going to be good for you? Does this improve your life? Those are too big of questions for a kid who's 6 or 8. And so if it brings them joy, great. And if not, it's also great because then they feel the pain of like, I spent the money I had. I saw it in my jar. I spent it. I got this rubber snake or whatever it is, and it's broken and I don't want to play with it anymore. And I wish I would have bought something else because now I don't have money for something else. That's the pain that I want them to kind of feel too, because that helps them hopefully think a little bit longer term and make smarter decisions.
I know you guys always make fun of me a little bit about how money savvy my kids are, so you're gonna love this. So the 10-year-old last night sent me a write up justifying why he should be able to use his money to buy 2 video games. They're on sale. He said, "Hey, I got until the 6th, and here's I'd say about 3/4 of a Google Doc of all the reasons why I should be allowed to buy it." Again, with my own money, because again, my rule is if it's over $20, like you got to wait 3 days, like with
I like
them.
it.
Like I've a rule for myself. If it's over $100, if it's in my Amazon cart hits above 100, I'm not allowed to go to Target unless I really have to, because it's never under $100. If anything's over that amount, it's like one, like you talk about it with your spouse, right? Like, okay, like this is my limit where I probably, starts getting a little ridiculous. And if I can, like I'll delay. Like I'll wait a week, or I'll, leave my Amazon cart for the weekend, or I'll take out stuff that took it over $100. And if I just need like a tool or something like that to fix something in my house, like I'll just order that. And so for them, that's going to be my comeback to him. Hey, awesome. Thank you for doing this. Thank you for taking the time. Very thoughtful, unprompted, by the way. Like it just showed up last night as I was like laying down. I'm like, oh, you sent this like an hour ago. What is this? And he's been learning typing. He's pretty good, man. Like, doesn't have to watch his hands or anything like that. Like he types like 40 words a minute, which I'm like, oh, okay. And so I'm going to make him wait though. I'm going to say, okay, totally. 3 days, come back to me if you still remember that you want this. Like, yeah, it's your money. Like, go for it.
Those are good skills to build too, right? Jared, how many times have you had to pitch some sort of executive on hiring a couple extra people for the team towards investing in some sort of extra platform
Literally, I'm sitting
investment
here
for your
like I
group,
was like my
right?
boss and I were last night talking about resourcing and for my
Yeah.
job it's not just my team which we talked about the week before. So, but it's also company stuff. So yeah, it's I don't know. For me it's I live it and breathe it every day. So I guess I can't help but osmosis it. Um Let me ask you this question and then we'll kind of go to our last segment here, but what's a money lesson that your parents taught you that still affects you today, for better or worse? I would say I'm not convinced. I was thinking about my answer to this, and I don't know if I have an answer that's good or bad. Right? I think I have an answer for both actually, where you're like, this is a good lesson, a bad lesson. But maybe Brandon, kick us off. Like, what's a lesson you learned from your parents, either through watching them or that they instilled in you, for better or for worse?
I think there's this like self-preservation kind of attitude that disallowed my mom and dad to like spend on things as they got older that I think they deserved. So like being a saver to a fault. I don't know if that's a thing, but like you get to a point where you want to enjoy kind of the fruits of your labor and you want your parents to enjoy kind of what they've earned over time. And I see some folks in my family like have a little bit of a hard time actually spending time or saying, you know what, I deserve this. I worked hard for this. I've done all the right things and I need to let my hair down a little bit. So I'd say that's something that is a consequence of being like super saver in a household that didn't have a lot of extra resources growing up that I'm trying to come to terms with right now. Like being able to say, okay, you've worked really hard. You've got enough. Like, feel good about making this investment in yourself. This is self care. This is something that is not gonna put you in timeout or in a bad place. So I'm actually learning how to do that and feel good about that actively.
And that's common, coming back to fire too. That's if you go onto Reddit or read any of the blogs around this stuff, that's fairly common in the fire movement as well, that people have trouble spending because they've spent the last 25 years saving and investing. And so suddenly when they get to that spot, they celebrate an early retirement, suddenly you have to reverse the engines. You've got to like start to spend some of the investment in a tax advantaged way, hopefully, that you've been working on for 25 years. And that feels very unsafe for people. And if you built all those habits, it feels weird to splurge.
Yeah. One thing I one thing that I'll say, it's easier to splurge or to spend with other people. So like we have a kid from Japan who's staying at our house for the weekend through an exchange program. And yesterday I'm walking him around our neighborhood, taking him down to ice cream. Palo Alto ice cream is not cheap, guys, but I spent the money on it just because I
Salt
wanted
and
to show him
straw
a
is
good
so
time.
good though. Salt and straw.
So I think when you do get to that point where you're ready to spend, if you have this like this haunting kind of guilty feeling, that doing it with other people, spending it with folks that you're trying to influence or that you enjoy being with is an unlock for me. Actually, I don't feel as bad if I'm spending it with somebody or for somebody than I feel if I'm spending it, just for myself or for me.
I do want to call it that both of your examples of splurging are like, I bought coffee at Starbucks or I bought ice cream. Not, I went to Vegas for a weekend and got bottle service or whatever. So maybe we're already on the thrifty side of people. I'm not sure. What about you,
Dave,
Travis? What
uh,
did you learn from your parents?
I was gonna say Dave Ramsey step 7 is, build wealth and give generously. I had to look it up, but, you're living it out right there, so we've come full circle. From my parents, though, I think there's an element of investing in yourself. So my dad, growing up, he finished high school and then went in the military, invested in himself in that way, successful career there, and retired after 21 years. And I still remember him when I was, before I was 10 probably, where he was at night sitting at a kitchen table with binders of information. He was getting some sort of additional, he's in agricultural science now, but he was getting an additional certification. So he's at the table after dinner, after a long day of work, like studying at night at home, in the 80s or early 90s, and investing in himself. And it paid off, it paid dividends. And so I think if you work hard, and you invest in yourself, and it doesn't stop. You kind of that student always element, that can really be something that both furthers you from a career perspective, but it's also just really fulfilling. I think we're here to continue to develop, grow in ourselves and give back to other people.
Yeah, I love that. Brent is
Throwing
repping
in the
his Cal shirt. Yeah,
he's
man.
throwing in the golden bear, the elements of our Haas education. I like how you're sneaking that in there, Travis.
Yeah,
Trying really
man.
hard.
For future
How about you?
sponsorship.
Yeah.
Uh,
How about you, Jared?
you
Bring
know,
us home.
I think let me give you the negative and then I'll give you the positive. So, and then let's talk about retirement. So, I think for the thing that I'm trying to change is talking about money, right? Like, and we just didn't. I didn't know how much they made. I didn't know if they were in debt. I did know that sometimes I felt this like uneasiness, but we've talked about this before. Like it was fine. Like it was all good. Like I had a great life and lived a different means than me and my family do, but felt okay. But I would say the not talking about it. My kids know how much I make. I told them what Zillow is. Go look up the house. I said we are extraordinarily lucky because we were born in this part of the world at this time in history, and it has a ton to do with that and a little bit, a decent amount with your natural talents and how hard you work and all those things. But there are plenty of people who are smarter and more capable than we are, who are born in different places that, when they improve their financial well being, it just looks very different than it does here, say in the Bay Area. And so I think that's one thing that we talk a lot about. My kids can I've educated them on equity in a way that would probably allow them to talk about equity in ways that most people don't understand, which is great. I think they understand what debt is, what good debt is, what bad debt is, and those pieces. I'd say on the positive side, you guys hit upon it, but education. My parents were the first to go to college. My mom had a master's. We all got our MBA together. I picked up a CPA license at some point. I've always got my nose in a book or some new hobby or whatever I'm trying to learn about. So that kind of constant betterment. And for me, I use it for idea inflow. Like I am the most inspired when I'm reading. And so anytime I feel like I'm in a rut in any part of my job or my life, I pick up a different type of book. And so you guys have recommended a ton of great books to me. But if you ever get a text from me, hey, what are you reading right now? It's because I'm feeling like I need some inspiration.
Actually, Jared, can I add the book that we did when we were researching money habits for kids? I was just looking it up. The book is called The Opposite of Spoiled. It's written by a guy named Ron Lieber. And one of the biggest downfalls for so many people that he interviewed in that book was not talking about it. It was like this taboo subject that was awkward, that was a little sensitive for some reason. So the family just didn't talk about it. And scientifically, like the research shows that you're disadvantaged if you don't know about it, talk about it, learn about it on way up. So I love that you were doing that.
I was gonna throw in the Psychology of Money was also another great
Mhm.
book, that was recommended to me. I don't know if, Jared, you recommended that or somebody else, but, um, that point about we're lucky about being in this particular part of the world, in this particular kind of place in history. Then a different book that I was reading by, Warren Buffett's biographer, he calls it the ovarian lottery. So the idea
Mhm.
that you're just, like, born in a certain place at a certain
I don't know if
time.
3 men should be talking about the ovarian lottery, but okay.
No, the idea that, uh, him acknowledging it and talking about it, like, openly, that, "Yes, I'm pretty wealthy. I made some decisions and good calls. I made some bad calls." I think that acknowledgement is really, really good, and that socializing openly is half the battle. If you could do that on a regular basis, then you're almost there.
Yeah, I'll throw in one last book and then I wanna talk about retirement a little bit because the world's changed a lot, but, a big part of all of this is perception versus reality. You guys have kinda danced around it here and there, but it's this concept of when you don't talk about money, it's this perception then is reality. And kids are now looking at Instagram and I think Travis, you mentioned at some point, like you can rent a private jet to take photos in. Same thing for high luxury clothes. Millionaire Next Door. Uh, my favorite book on real stats, like actually talking to people who are rich, who, if that's what you want to be, what do they do? How do they spend their money? And you'll find it's wildly boring, and it is very easy to emulate a lot of their habits, and has very little to do with flying private jets and Vegas bottle service and all those things. Let's talk about retirement a little bit. So let me give you guys some stats that blow me away. Um, so the latest stat I saw, though I've seen a couple. So Pew Research said 18% of Americans 25 to 34 are living with their parent. Scott Galloway put out a great book called 100 Charts, where he said like 50 people, 50% of kids under 28 are living back at home. And candidly, when I look at my friend group, there's always a good reason, but like it's true. Like it seems to be about half their kids. The other piece that's happening is generational household went from 7% in 1971 to 18% in 2021. I am one of those. My mom lived with us until she passed away. My dad an apartment down the street. Now my dad lives with us. And so I've got three generations under one roof. And this idea that my dad didn't really have retirement. When he retired, he had a little bit. Um, it talks about another article 40% of baby boomers cannot keep track with their current lifestyle when they retire. Like they're going to have a meaningful change in how they live. This idea that kids leave home at 18, like I did, that we all did, that your parents retire alone, it just doesn't happen anymore. So, how do you guys think about retirement now? Both in terms of these facts, but I think Brandon, you were telling me how you think about retirement and kind of, I thought it was a really healthy way to look at it. So maybe we can kick off with you.
Yeah, I mean, the way that I look at work, when I got out of school, there are elements of the engineering job that I had that I enjoyed, many more things that I didn't enjoy. And as I've progressed, like throughout these last 20, 21 years, I tried to integrate all of the things that I actually like doing, such that work today in year 21 doesn't as much feel like work. It feels more like calling and feels more like the things that I feel talented and gifted to do that also kind of fill up my own bucket and fill up my own cup. So the idea that, I'll hit some magical age and then just stop working altogether is less of a concept for me and more of just a shifting towards even more alignment, I think, in the things that I feel like naturally called to do. So it's great to be paid money to actually do most of the things that I do that I really enjoy. And to the extent that I can continue to do that, I don't know that I'll ever like retire, but there's pros and cons to being W-2, to being, free agent 1099 for a business or set of businesses or causes that you love. So yeah, my concept and notion of retirement has changed from like a point in time at 65 years old to like, let's just shed as much of what you don't enjoy doing and delegate that away so that you just are turned on and like turned up every day that you come into an office or every day that you come into a space and the people that you're working with. I got this thing at work, like do epic things with epic people. So you get to, hang with your friends and like do stuff that you like, then it doesn't even really feel like work. So retirement, bro, is way, way out for me. But that's kind of my hot take on it at
Yeah.
this point, 2026.
Yeah, you said something that stuck with me, which was, well, I might as well be retired because this is how I would be spending my time if I were retired. And so I was like, oh, and I'm like, oh, that's great. Do I feel that way? And I think I do for the most part now. But it's very prescient. What about you, Travis? Like, how do you picture this? Like, gosh, like I don't know how. Did your parents ever retire? Are they still working? Like, how's that all played out?
Yeah, one in and one out. My dad is retired. He's a little bit older than my mom. My mom's still working. She is literally counting down the days to May 14th, 2027. So I think she started somewhere in the 900s. She's in the low 300s right now.
Awesome.
And they've got goals and they're setting it and they've got a date and that's great because it's got something. There's something to look forward to. I think the big thing I've heard on retirement was not only retiring from something, but retiring to something. And I had to look it up. I'd heard this that especially for men, but I think it's across genders too, that there is, according to looking at the stats here, Journal of Public Economics, that there's age 62 spike, a 20% surge in mortality, specifically among the cohort of men who completely retire the exact month they turn 62. So there is in the data some correlation between life, meaning, calling, whatever it is, and retiring and not having something retired to that also like potentially is correlated with a spike in death. Like what next? I don't know. And so I think even sorry, it sounds morbid. Even if you don't die, like you should retire to something. Like you should
How
you should
dead are they? Oh my god.
I'm glad you asked, Jared. Just threw that one across home plate for you. Retire to something, right? And you take the break, decompress, go get through the burnout from whatever you've been bottling up, but retire to something, have something. Because I think also there's a lot of research around having a purpose and having friendships and some sort of social element too that is really healthy for people in retirement. I'm not there yet. I'm in my 40s. And so going back to the fire movement where we kind of started this conversation, if you go down this rabbit hole, jump on Reddit, jump on the internets and research this. There's a bunch of variations. I think Jared, you alluded to one, coast fire, right? And so there is the standard fire where you retire, and you try to take the investments that you've accumulated and then live off those until you get to a spot where you're living off of Social Security, retirement accounts, whatever. There's a lean fire where you actually downshift and you live in a very lean way, kind of beans and rice style. There is a chubby fire where you actually like start to splurge a little bit more. There is a fat fire too, I think, for people who have no.
How dare you?
I know.
Chubby fire. I'll be honest. I
Gotcha.
think you made up chubby fire. I've
No,
heard of
it's
fat
a real
fire.
thing. There
No,
there is
I think you got trolled. I really do. I think
there's a whole subreddit on it. Trust me.
you just eat a
Um,
Taco Bell.
yeah.
Jack
I
in the
think
Box.
Taco Box, Taco Bell.
I think that's GI Trouble Fire is the subreddit there. Coast Fire too is interesting. Where
Prilosec OG. Or was it,
Prilosec Fire. Um, we are not medically trained, folks. Please consult a physician for all of your medical needs. Coast Fire is interesting too. People retire to something where they can just make enough money and get health insurance. You hear a lot of people just saying, "I'm not going to invest in my 401k anymore. I'm going to live a little bit more." Splurge style, being able to afford these things because I have more discretionary income. Barista Fire is another you mentioned too. And that is, I think, the variation where they go get a job at Starbucks because Starbucks is famous for providing health insurance and a decent job of decent benefits for people who only work part time.
and
And so there's
equity.
a lot. There's a lot of variations here. So that's maybe just a lot of background. I actually went through a lot of this, and I'm probably in the regular fire camp. That's what I want to do. I've done just to disclosure. I've done kind of the independence thing where it's gotten me a lot of um, optionality. I think to your point, Brandon, right? To be able to step back and say like, what do I really want to do? What fills my cup? How do I do the work that is most fulfilling to me? And what can I outsource or leave behind? But I don't have any interest in retiring early. I think I would go stir crazy and my wife would kick me out of the house and say, you've got to go find something to do. So,
I'd say also don't like compartmentalize yourself so much while you're at work, such that when you get to the end, you don't have any like extra thing that you've ever invested time into. I think being a fully integrated, hey, I'm a community, family loving, hobby having human that comes into work, and I invest in all of those buckets all throughout my career will leave you with a lot to do when you do choose to, move into that quote unquote retirement phase. And if you over index on just the work for
yeah.
30 years, like what does that person look like coming out with no other stuff to do? Their identity is so tied to it that it could be really, really difficult at the end of that road.
It's a
Yeah,
whole separate episode in itself, I think.
it is the psychology of that. I can call myself guilty of that. It's fascinating. I've never founded a company, but man, sometimes I feel like I in my mind identify myself as like I must work this hard as if it's my own company. And again, I'm all for working hard, but I think it's a wonderful point of uh probably in my late 20s, I had some good friends sit me down and be like, stop it. Like, you need to stop burning the candle at both ends, and you need to, like, slow down a little bit. And you 2 know me. You would say I haven't done that. I would say I'm wildly better than I used to be. So, I think, you guys hit on a couple things. Let me pick out a few things here. So, back in the early aughts, there's a guy named Tim Ferriss who's still around. He actually had a great interview with Guy Oseary the other day that was just really good. Guy's a really impressive person. He co-founded a startup that I was a part of, and he was just a really amazing guy. He Tim Ferriss had this book called 4 Hour Work Week that was really popular, kind of before FIRE was a thing. And when they interviewed him, say 10 years later, he said the hardest part was nobody had a plan. Like they did all this stuff, they kinda set up their life and they didn't know what to do with their time, right? And that's bad, right? Like, I think we're made to work to some extent, right? Like, I
Yeah.
don't I don't think we're made to be idle. So I think having that and I would tell you the next version of this that I talk with a lot of friends about who come to me for kind of personal finance advice is it's not about assets at some point, it's about cash flow, right? So when we talk about financial independence, it's not about, oh, I've got a bunch of money sitting in the home that I bought or rental properties. If you don't have cash to pay your bills, like that actually becomes a problem. I know a lot of people who have a lot of assets who have like no cash flow for whatever reason, right? They kept leveraging up, but at some point you got to shift your focus over towards that. And then it's you can start looking at bigger bills like insurance and at some point I went through when the interest rates were low and I refinanced everything and it was kind of a pain in the butt for all the rental properties and stuff like that. But I'll tell you now, like it really helps me with my cash flow, right? And there's a lot of people who, again, Dave Ramsey, debt's bad, maybe, but I'm a person who believes in paying off your mortgage just from a cash flow standpoint. So that's how I think about it. I do want to, you guys hit it, and I think I texted this to you guys the other day. I said, like, today I do probably two things I like, two things I love, and I work a big job, right? My retirement is doing five things I love. And that like 6 months I took off between jobs was me previewing retirement. And I went and met every nonprofit leader in kind of this like traditionally in house space, another thing we should talk about at some point, and housing and the crisis we have in America. Met all the community and kind of government leaders that would return my email. And do you know you can't buy government leaders like anything, like lunch, coffee, breakfast? So it's like really hard to incentivize them to come hang out with you like you can with other people. Um, and so I think it's leaning into those things, and then if you can somehow make some amount of an income out of that at some point, I think it's great. I maybe I'll end this before we go into the wind down with a couple of quotes. You talked about Warren Buffett and his partner Charlie Munger. So a couple of things. So uh, Munger had a speech here, and he says he warned graduates away from grinding careers, saying that winning a pie eating contest just means eating more pie, and life is too short to do nothing but eat pie. And Buffett had a great piece of advice, which mirrors a lot of the career advice I've gotten that I listen to, which is work backwards from the end, write your obituary, and try to figure out how to live up to it. And I just love those. Like, I think it starts at the end and you look backwards. And, if you've worked in an office for 60 hours a week for the last 20 years, like, it's not a very interesting obituary, right?
He steal that from you? I feel
I
like you
mean,
said that.
it's true. Warren and I were out
Pretty sure. I'm pretty sure.
having fast food, and
Yeah.
I said to him, Warren, like, I don't know how you think about it, but I think you should look at your life, kind of write your obituary now and then look backwards. And then I saw this quote in the journal and I was like, man, Warren.
Yeah. Attributed to Jared Backlund. That's what
And
I thought. I
well, I
just
call I call him WB. I mean, I'm like, WB, like, what are you doing? And he always called me. I'm like, you should buy Apple. Like, I think that's a good stock. I think I was working there at the time, and he's just like, and he doesn't text. He's got one of those rotary phones or whatever. So
great book called,
Wow.
Working Backwards when I worked at Amazon. Like, we talked about working backwards all the time, so it's, like, stamped into my brain. But, yeah, probably even Jeff Bezos and the Amazon people are stealing from your quote there because a lot of their culture is just about your quote about
I
working
will not
backwards.
be friends with Jeff Bezos. I'm sorry. I'm not going to pretend like I'm not interested in
You
being
know,
that guy's friend.
another JB. So,
He's
yeah,
ruining the initials, I'll be honest. I'm not interested in him as a, yeah, no thank you. Hey, guys, let's head over into the wind down. So, as we wind down, I want to use one of my family traditions. So, when we sit down at the dinner table every night, or not every night, I'm not going to pretend, a lot of nights, we go around the table and we're always fighting for second, third, fourth, right? Who's going to go in what order? And everyone wants to be last. But what we talk about is let's name one or two things that were good this week. And let's name, if you had a tough day, something that's spicy. And spicy we picked when they were little, but it kind of stuck with us as a family. So let's maybe go round the horn here. Maybe I'll go first, like good things and spicy things. I think on the good front, I'll be honest, Travis, I'm still thinking about that home that has no kitchen. It is living in my brain rent free right now. This concept of your buddy who's like, I built a home without a kitchen. I'm so fascinated by that. Like, I just keep thinking of different angles about why that is so fascinating of a trend. And so that's been like the thing I've been thinking about this week. I think on the spicy side, I'll be honest, man, my life's good. I'm good right now. So I think I actually don't have anything spicy this week. So I'm feeling very, very blessed for sure. So what about you, Travis? Like, give me something good, give me something spicy.
Yeah, yeah. I'm amused that that's stuck in your brain, though. It is an interesting trend, and I think just it's interesting because we're watching maybe a couple new generations come up, and it's going to look different for them in a lot of different ways. So it's going to be fascinating. I think what's been really good is we just took a road trip with some friends from California, and we're still on it. We're here. We were at Mount Rushmore till 10 o'clock last night. It was great, and it reminded me of the value of time spent together and experiences as opposed to physical things. I think when we've talked a lot today about money and what you can spend your money on, how you can spend your retirement. There's definitely a splurge element to the physical things, but there's also a lot of value in the experiences and the relationships. So I think it's just reinforced how much of importance I should put to that and how I should continue to invest in that. And then the second thing, it's not spicy, but it was more challenging this week, was hearing that our godson, one of his friends from summer camp, died tragically in a lightning strike last week. And so, 18 lightning strikes are like so rare. It's like less likely you're more likely to be bitten by a shark, I think, while swimming in the ocean. Like this is how rare this is. And it's a reminder of just how short life can be. Like we've talked a lot about the length of life and getting to retirement, but not tomorrow is not guaranteed. I think there's also an element of making sure you're living every day to its fullest, so that you can minimize regrets. And I think that is not spicy, but it is a little bit of a harder message or uh, item to try to remember in the moment.
yeah, we got to
Sorry,
take
that's a bit heavy, but
yeah,
that's
it's one of
what's been there.
Your turn, Brandon.
man. I'll say the good things for this week. I had two agentic AI summits and was really excited to virtually participate and like lead. There's this event where probably 250 people across the nation sign up, and like half of them are online, and then half of them go to this place in Oklahoma City and convene in person. So I was the guy to convene 125 people online, like on Zoom, and like create activities for them. And I got lots of compliments at the end of that. Is like, you help up level my understanding. You help, give me tools that I'll use with my students. So that was bucket filling this week. And I'm going to UC Berkeley after this for the next 2 days this weekend to do the exact same thing in person. So all about AI and agents and education this whole week for me has been the good thing. Um, Spicy thing, which is like another book that I'm listening to. There's one called Humankind, A Hopeful History by this guy called Rutger Bregman. And the book's premise is about how we typically, as human beings, kind of fade into cynicism really quickly. If you like look at the news,
I'm right
uh,
here, dude. Like, you don't have to like call me out. Like, what the?
so this guy, he actually investigates like the truth behind a lot of like notions that are commonly held that actually factually aren't like backed up by data. So when bad
What's an
things
example?
happen, so like Hurricane Katrina, if you remember like all of the stories about um babies getting their wrists slit or like rampant drug use or like things that are happening or crime is spiking, a lot of those were unsubstantiated claims, but they rile up the kind of human spirit, and the humans who are pulling these headlines in are basically kind of getting hardened to being humane to like their brother and sister that they see in real life. So this book is about again, humankind, a hopeful history, kind of giving you the real facts behind how humans perform during like stressful, intense times. So he goes to wartime, he goes to hurricanes and natural disasters, and like our tendency to actually be pretty good people is something that is kind of a spicy hot take. Like I'm gonna try to look at people that I walk by and like see the humanity and like expect the good from them. Like this week, next month, as opposed to being a little bit more cynical, which I think we as Americans we tend to be. So, JB, you can come on this journey with me too, man.
I mean, what if I'm not interested? I'll be honest. This is it's a feature, not a bug, Brandon. No, it resonates with me. I think it's every once in a while I'll go volunteer or something, and you see these people, and you're like, gosh, man, like, what is your motivation? They're like, well, someone needs me, and I just thought I could help, and I just thought, oh God, like, okay, yeah, you're awesome. So I think there are more than a few bright spots in humanity, and there's a reason I don't do a ton of social media and I don't do a lot of news because it definitely riles up the conspiracy theory side of things.
And that's by design, right? I mean, I think there's a lot of you can go down a rabbit hole researching this too. That there's a lot of that virality that is by design. If it bleeds, it leads was the old newspaper adage, and I think it's on steroids now when you think about social media and how they make things go viral.
For sure. Okay, folks, you can find us all on LinkedIn. We've got a couple other, I've got a blog link in our notes. Brothers, I will see you guys next week. Have a good week.
Have a great
Thanks,
week.
guys.
Talk to you later.
Let the